I am not responsible for any lost monetary value. Gamble at your own risk. Alright, what's crackin' lacking gamers? The first pay-per-view of the year is upon us. MLK weekend, January 18th, we will see a rematch. Nearly 6 years in the making between Islam Makhachev and Arman Tsarukyan. There's a lot of other exciting fights scheduled for this date, such as the Mexican Merab versus the Dagestani Umar, and I'm pumped because I'm going to be there as a live spectator in the arena. Bro, I'm going to get to see Khabib corner Islam and Umar. That's going to be crazy. I pray Yuri Prochazka takes out Jamal Hill. And Jamal is one of the most delusional fighters on the roster. So without further ado, let's start with the headliner title fight. Islam versus Arman 2. Both fighters have evolved greatly from their first encounter. Islam was a sambo specialist with very limited striking, but you could see the hints of his kicking in this fight that would lead him to success down the road. This was Arman's first UFC fight, being 22 years old at the time, and both his and Islam's first fight of the night in the organization. Arman's defensive grappling and overall grappling shined in this fight, being the first of two men to take Islam down still to this day, and Arman himself would not be taken down by any other UFC opponent after this. Anytime Islam tripped Arman or got a takedown, Arman was ready to defend and using the butterfly guard to get the heavy hips of Islam off of him. Islam tripped Arman and slid into full mount, but Arman was able to defend and not let Islam do anything. He got Islam right off of him very quickly. But now, they are true mixed martial artists at the highest level, so who's gotten better since then? Arman's striking, specifically his punches, have become so much tighter and straighter. He has basically used the same things since that first fight, just refined and made everything more efficient. You could see the shots from Arman being a lot quicker now, like against Beneil Dariush, with the one overhand into the clinch knee followed by a straight right that knocked Beneil Dariush out. But he does one move that could find him trouble, the spinning kicks, and even the spinning back fist that he likes to spam a lot. He spammed the spinning back kick in the first fight against Islam a ton, and threw it once or twice at UFC 300 versus Oliveira, and now I believe that Islam will jump on that back if Arman gives it to him. Another move that Arman likes to spam is his body kicks, and sometimes the head kicks. We saw Arman go 5 rounds with Gamrot, and I think that he should have won that fight in all honesty. But over the course of the 25 minutes, he would throw 2 to 3 body kicks at a time with no setup. Some of them did find success, but it's not smart to throw so many kicks in succession against a man like Islam. If he wants to use those same tools, he's going to have to stay much more patient and measured with his combos and setups. Arman is an orthodox fighter and Islam is a southpaw, so they will both be throwing that rear body kick across the midsection for the entire fight, I bet. Arman in his fight against Gamrot threw them so much. Like, if you look at the first round body kicks to the 5th round body kicks, it's almost 3 times as fast. I'm not even kidding. He was so tired of spamming that move. Looking at one of their opponents that they've shared, Charles Oliveira, Islam obviously had an easier time. But why was that? I do think that the version of Oliveira that Arman fought was a tougher opponent, and the one that fought Islam was far more reckless and possibly mad because of losing his belt on the scale the fight before. That being said, Arman could not pass Oliveira's guard over the course of 3 rounds, and Islam did this multiple times in about 8 minutes. Arman got caught by 3 different deep submissions, the guillotine where his shorts slid off and possibly saved him, the triangle armbar where the bell definitely saved him at the end of round 2, and the darce that ended round 3. Oliveira's best moment against Islam was probably the upkick off his back. He didn't really have much success against Islam in all honesty. Islam is riding into this fight on a 14-fight winning streak, 3rd most in UFC history behind Kamaru Usman and Anderson Silva, which is crazy to think about that he is on the verge of breaking one of the most legendary records in the organization. But I think that this fight is going to be a 25-minute affair. I think that they are nearly evenly matched, with Islam having more experience and patience. Arman got taken down multiple times against Gamrot, but Arman is much more athletic and has the speed over Islam. Islam is actually kind of slow if you watch his fights, even on his takedown attempts. If you watch a side-by-side of Islam versus Khabib shooting for takedowns, it's so clear how much quicker Khabib is. Islam is just really good at it. So that's who my pick is going to be. Islam by decision. This fight should definitely go to the championship rounds, I think, at the very least, because of the fact that they are evenly matched. And then we got the bantamweight title between Merab Dvalishvili and Umar Nurmagomedov. Sitting at a perfect 18-0, Umar has a chance to bring another belt to Dagestan. Merab is coming into this fight fired up, but this man is always like that. He has to have ADHD or something, or maybe it's all that cardio training. Merab's best tool is his cardio in wrestling. Merab has 1 knockout in the UFC versus a Marlon Moraes whose chin was completely shattered at that point and was gassed to the max after almost finishing Merab in the first round, actually. So it's not like Umar is going to have to worry too much about the striking. Obviously, he's going to have to respect it, but Merab is looking to punch, and then shoot for a takedown. That's been his main weapon of success throughout his UFC career. Umar is going to see the takedown attempts, and he even said it himself. he will probably get taken down at some point in this fight, but there's no way that Merab's going to hold him there. Merab shot 53 times on Piotr Jan, but that means that Jan was able to get up on multiple attempts or defend multiple attempts. Umar went 25 minutes with Corey Sandhagen, but there will be a different level of fatigue fighting Merab because of the grinding style. Umar has some good dynamic kicks, and I think he's going to try and stay on the outside, waiting for Merab to shoot off the kicks, and Umar's just going to defend all night. Potentially even finding a way onto Merab's back. While he's fresh, I think that Umar will be able to bag the first 2 rounds easily. It's just the cardio issue. I could see Merab doing some stupid stuff like he did in the O'Malley fight where he just turns his back to Sean with 10 seconds left and getting hurt. But this time in the Umar fight, these 2 title fights are almost evenly matched because they are all predominantly grapplers. But I think I'm going to continue the trend of picking the Dagestanis, and I'm going to go by Umar by decision. Merab could turn it on later in the rounds when Umar's a little bit gassed, but I don't see him finishing Umar. He has no submissions and 1 knockout with a giant asterisk next to it. I think that whoever wins this fight between Merab and Umar is going to be bantamweight champion for a very long time. Now this one has fight of the night written all over it. Yuri Prochazka versus Jamal Hill. Say what you want about Jamal Hill, but he does put on some pretty good fights and is almost always coming after you. And obviously everyone loves Yuri because that man was born to fight and loves fighting and putting on a show. But the training for this fight actually has the least amount of oddness, it seems, out of all his UFC fights. Both of these men became champion of this division, and when Yuri became it, he got injured, so he vacated it. And then the same thing happened with Jamal, where he got injured, he tore his Achilles, and he vacated it, which is honorable. Yuri is the only man out of the 4 guys that fought Pereira in this division that has had a fight since fighting him. He fought Alexander Rakic and then Pereira the second time. Jan Blachowicz, nowhere to be seen. Jamal Hill came back from that injury and then got knocked out, and this is going to be his fight. And then Khalil Roundtree is still recovering. But just a little side note. But man, that second fight with Alex Pereira that Yuri had was brutal. He got dropped at the end of round 1 and head kicked 5 seconds into round 2. And the fight should have been stopped after the head kick landed. But that's Dean's fault, man. So Alex had to go to the ground to pound and just keep pounding away on an already defeated Yuri, adding more damage. That's a lot of punishment from one of the biggest power punchers this sport has seen, and it's not like this was a one-off performance where he took a lot of damage. That has been his whole career, even in his wins. Yuri has to get stunned to wake up in the fight. Even with Rakic and Reyes, those guys both hurt him. Yuri's style is with his hands down, charging his chakra, and looking for a good shot. When you're looking for a big shot to land, it's harder to do that, so everyone sets these big shots up. Yuri is just like, whatever bro, let's throw down. His chin could be permanently cracked, and against Jamal Hill, that's going to be an issue. Jamal is predominantly a boxer who has actually really underrated cardio that no one ever talks about. He landed 232 out of 402 strikes against an aging Glover Teixeira to become champion. When Yuri became champ fighting Glover, it was a war that he was actually losing, but found that Hail Mary submission to become the first man to submit Glover in the final minute of the fight. I don't think that Jamal Hill has one-punch knockout power like a lot of people think he does. He has a lot of KOs in the UFC, but you have to look at who it was against. Ovince St. Preux and Thiago Santos, who were over the hill themselves at the time. And then Jimmy Crute and Johnny Walker, but those guys get knocked out by everyone. He has above average power, I think, but a Yuri with a primed chin should be able to tank those shots all night. What I see Jamal doing that gives Yuri problems is that head kick. From the southpaw stance, even when they were being blocked, those head kicks were wobbling Glover bad. And we just saw how Alex knocked out Yuri with the head kick. And Jamal's pretty accurate with the shots. Even when he hurt Glover, he stayed composed for a while, but he started to load up after 20 shots went unanswered. I could honestly see the sequence of Yuri getting dropped by Alex in the second fight at the end of the first round, replaying in this fight against Jamal because Yuri has his hands down, chin exposed, and from the southpaw stance, Jamal Hill will fade away and fire off the check right hook. It's hard to predict a Yuri Prochazka fight because I don't even think he knows what he's doing. He just goes into the fight and tries to figure out a way to victory while getting punched. Jamal game planned very well for Glover, nearly a shutout performance. Anytime Glover got close, Jamal Hill would knee, and it's just the little things like that that add up to making someone win. I also don't believe this fight will touch the ground at all unless someone gets dropped or hurt. So as much as I would like Yuri to win, I'm going to pick Jamal Hill by knockout. Either way, this fight should be a banger, and I'm super excited to see these guys throw down in person, bro. It'll be crazy. But before this, we got some lightweights going at it. Benny Dariush versus Manny Moicano. These are two high-level grapplers, with Moicano maybe being the better jiu-jitsu player. But we saw Dariush defend and roll very well with Gamrot, probably his best performance in the UFC. Dariush has some heavy hands too. We saw Gamrot hit the deck after an overhand left, I think, landed. Pre-Arman fight, I would easily pick Dariush, but he has been saying that if he were to lose this fight, he's likely to retire, which is never a good sign to hear from a fighter. Moicano was coming off of the Saint Denis fight where he literally beat that guy up for 10 minutes until the doctors had to stop it. Probably his best performance in the UFC as well. Moicano is not knocking dudes out on the feet. He's searching for mistaking the striking to bring it to the ground, either by catching kicks or looking for takedowns. Dariush should be able to defend all of this though, and striking, he does have that knockout power, like I said. Moicano's only been knocked out once at lightweight in the UFC versus Rafael Fiziev, but we've seen him knocked out multiple times before that. So my pick will be Beneil Dariush by knockout. Stylistically, this should be an easy matchup for him. He should defend and find a big shot later in the fight, maybe like a round or two in. And then for the main card opener, we got Kevin Holland versus former 2 Division 1 championship champion, Reinier de Ridder. Kevin Holland just fought Roman Dolidze in October and hurt himself transitioning in the grappling, and RDR is a way higher level grappler than Dolidze. Probably one of the better pure grapplers of this division. Maybe not MMA grapplers, but pure jiu-jitsu specialists. Yes, he is so good. But his striking is just the opposite. GM3 and this man went to war. I mean, Gerald Mearshart was touching this man up on the feet, but he's also a high-level black belt. So that's why it was so impressive when he submitted GM3 in that final round. Kevin Holland had that run where he went 5-0 in 2020, but then he started to run into wrestlers and grapplers and would get controlled easily. That's his kryptonite. He was better off fighting at welterweight where these grapplers were much smaller, allowing for more success. Still, in both divisions, Kevin Holland has an immense amount of power. He just has to find that shot before RDR takes him down. But I don't think he's gonna. I got Reinier de Ridder by submission. He could get cracked early, but I think he's wise enough to dive on the legs as soon as that bell rings. Kevin Holland does not belong in middleweight, and I don't know why he takes these matchups where he's stylistically at a disadvantage, but F it, that man's gangster, right? Moving down to the prelims, we got Johnny Walker versus Bogdan Guskov. All I know is that all of my picks before are wrong and go to a decision. At least one knockout is guaranteed to happen in this fight. But I just think that Johnny Walker needs to retire, man. I think pound for pound, his chin is the most fragile on the roster. Like, I'm pretty sure Merab could knock him out if he tried. But on the flip side, he's also one of the more wild fighters on the roster. But that hasn't been a lot of success for him as of late. Bogdan is coming into this fight on a 2 knockout streak, and I think that he will make it into 3, so that's who my pick is. And then we got Peyton Talbot versus Raoni Barcelos. It's interesting that Talbot is already getting a decent veteran of the division rather than another Can. This should be a good look at what the prospect is truly capable of. Talbot has 2 knockouts and 1 submission out of his 3 fights in the UFC. He's not a specialist, and he's training to be great at all facets of the game. He's got pretty good power, pretty good reach, shot placement, and accuracy. I think that Talbot's going to try and keep this one on the feet for as long as he can. Barcelos has been dropped and knocked out in his last couple of fights, and Talbot can crack, man. So I expect the first or second round knockout from him. Jailton Almeida versus Sergey Spivak is also on the card. It's like battle of the mid. Hard to say because Almeida's performance with Derek Lewis, where he was just looking at him while grappling, no shots thrown, no submissions, it was just pure control. Spivak is 4-1 in his last 5, only losing to Cyril Gane, with 2 submissions and 2 knockouts. I think that Almeida should win by a decision, but I could honestly see Spivak having success on the feet and on the ground. Still, Jailton is my pick. And then for the final fight I'm going to break down, Grant Dawson versus Diego Ferreira. Grant Dawson is actually an underrated lightweight of the division, despite getting knocked out by Bobby Green in less than a minute. That shouldn't tarnish his skills or accomplishments in the octagon. His striking obviously isn't up to the level of Bobby Green. Bobby Green's really good. But Diego Ferreira is kind of wild. He's got a lot of knockouts, a lot of submissions, but he's also taken a lot of damage. And my original pick was Diego Ferreira, but looking at his age, 39 to 30, I think that Grant Dawson's going to find a way to take the fight to the ground and possibly control him for 3 rounds, or in the wildness of Diego Ferreira, Grant Dawson will capitalize on a moment to find a submission. I give it like a 90% chance that this fight doesn't go to the decision. Diego Ferreira's wild, and Grant Dawson can capitalize on that pretty easily. Now, if I was a betting man, which I am, it's actually a pretty serious issue, I would probably lay down some money on Beneil Dariush and Reinier de Ridder. You could probably put down a parlay of fights that don't go to a decision, such as Yuri versus Jamal, Johnny Walker versus Guskov, and Kevin Holland versus RDR. I don't see any of those 3 fights going to a decision, and a parlay could actually hit very well for that. I don't get how Renato Moicano is a 2-1 favorite over Beneil Dariush. Honestly, that might be the pick of the night for me, personally. Just go off of my picks, gamers. Beneil Dariush is my pick of the night. You know, maybe go lay down $20, a paycheck, or your future child's tuition for college or whatever. I don't know what you got money on, but just go gamble. There's no way you could lose. You only can make 1,000,000% of your money back, so that's it. If you liked the video, make sure you knee that like button and elbow that subscribe button. Hope you enjoyed the breakdown, and I'll see y'all at the fights.